Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar on the power of combining product sampling and media. I'm Marie Chevrier. I'm the founder of Sampler, and I've been doing product sampling for pretty much my entire career, whether it was handing out free samples on street corners, in grocery stores, or even in pharmacies. But most recently, I've been working on digital product sampling for the last 5 years. I'm also joined by Jonathan Penn.
Thanks, Marie. Yeah, hi, this is Jonathan Penn. I've been in digital media for over 20 years now, since the 20th century. Most recently was at Tremor Video, and then at Turn, AT&T. I am New York City based, but also traveling to see clients and my team all the time.
That's great. And so quickly, a little bit about Sampler before we get started. Sampler has been working with consumer packaged good brands, over 300 of them over the last 5 years, and across 17 different countries. But I think the most exciting part is that we've seen that digital sampling is a trend that's actually hitting pretty much every single category. So we work with brands in beauty, personal care, beverage, food. There really isn't a category that can't benefit from digital product sampling. And so as we go in introduce this concept of digital product sampling, let's level set on the fact that product sampling, although it's been around for so many years, is still very much the most effective way to get consumers to consider your product by either entering a new category or ultimately considering your brand versus another. But the problem with product sampling in general is that it's really a broken process. In fact, 95% of product samples delivered today are completely untargeted and really don't give you an opportunity to truly measure your return on investment. We've all seen activations like that. We all run them. And ultimately, the reality is that traditional sampling strategies just don't allow you to build direct-to-consumer relationships.
Thanks, Maria. And that's a huge important part as to where we are in the ecosystem now. Brands are really looking to build that direct-to-consumer relationship, how to break through the clutter of ads that they see all the time or those retail relationships. How can we develop a one-to-one relationship between a brand and a consumer? So we're in a new digital age where direct-to-consumer brands are exploding on the spot, and big CPG clients and niche ones alike are taking notice and developing strategies around that as well.
And really, product sampling should be no different, right? That's where digital product sampling comes to play. So we're going to be publishing a poll right now, should be appearing on your screen. And ultimately, what we want to know is, have you tested digital product sampling before? When it comes to digital product sampling, we define it as a new method that allows brands to send a physical product sample to digitally targeted high-value consumers with the goal of measuring the impact of the trial quickly and efficiently. You might have heard of it as e-sampling, smart sampling, online sampling, targeted sampling, but ultimately it's a way for you to really leverage the power of digital in order to find the right consumer and deliver them a physical experience. So we're going to end the poll in just a few seconds. It looks as though 65% of you have never actually tested digital product sampling. So digital sampling is still a very new concept for a lot of you, and we'll look to really uncover how you might leverage it for your brands as well as we possibly can today.
And sure, and thanks for those stats. 65% is certainly high, but it's not out of the norm. Because when we think about it, why aren't we buying product sampling? Why we're not how we buy our media? So big brands today, when you think about from the traditional world of being untargeted, but the fact that you're using big data, you're using analytics, and brands are using insights on how to inform how they're creating product or putting their products in stores, where are they going to be buying their media? Nobody buys media without the efficiency of data. Why shouldn't they be using that same methodology towards product sampling? And that is where Sampler comes in. So
where traditional product sampling strategies might be a little bit more, untargeted and provide a bit more limited insight or make it hard for you to truly track ROI. Digital product sampling comes in and creates a more personalized, insightful ability for you to track impact and continue the conversation with consumers and ultimately really uncover real-time data that can make your program a lot more turnkey and a lot more reactive in real time. So what we're really doing with digital sampling is we're redefining media expectations, right? As media buyers, we're all striving to drive impressions that will drive our brand awareness. And we're often really shooting in the blind, driving impressions and hoping that consumers become more aware of our brand. But with product sampling, what we're able to do is to drive consumers directly to consideration. If you think about it, if you ask yourself what makes your product or your client's product so special, I bet you're going to answer with something like its scent, its feel, its taste, or its efficiency, the way that it works. And all of these things are physical experiences. They are not things that you can see in an ad impression or in a quick video. And so by delivering a physical product sample, we're allowing consumers to skip the awareness phase and go straight to consideration. And by doing digital sampling, so actually delivering this with data-driven insights, we're able to actually measure the impact that consideration had on conversion, loyalty, and advocacy. So really today, what we're telling you is, if you put all of your bet on product sampling, you would be able to control your entire marketing funnel. So as far as how we measure success, so when it comes to product sampling, the success is measured based on a conversion to the newsletter. So for example, you can see as much as 50% of your consumers actually converting to opt-in. You can see 25% of consumers actually coming back and giving feedback and reviews. You can also see as much as 30% of consumers saying they are driven to consideration via the sampling. And ultimately, for the best of us, we'll be able to measure that all the way to e-com purchase, where we see as much as 1 to 3%. But when it comes to today, how people are actually doing sampling, they're still doing very indirect sampling. So they're still betting on channels like direct mail or shopper marketing or even experiential marketing. And so what you see on the screen right now is the split of where we see brands spend most of their product sampling dollars. So 40% of sampling dollars still go today to direct mail. Direct mail being the ability for you to buy postal codes where you will be able to deliver samples based on data collected by a third party. And ultimately, in that case, you truly don't have that direct consumer relationship. You'll see a lot of sampling go to shopper marketing, a lot of sampling going to experiential marketing, so giving free samples in yoga studios or at a big event. And then we'll see a couple of brands start testing, or having tested. A lot of brands have tested with subscription boxes, but very little still have actually tested with digital product sampling. We need to change that. The main reason that brands are spending their budget this way is because it is a lot more cost effective to give out samples at random than to actually leverage the power of data in order to deliver your samples. But what we want to push you to think about is the fact that that can result in something we call product sampling debt. When you're distributing a sample that isn't uniquely distributed to a consumer, you are accumulating product sampling debt. We define product sampling debt as the accumulation of product sampling activity that cannot be verified as being distributed to a unique consumer or household. As a brand, you should be measuring the number of times Jonathan has received a sample. And we know he likes to get free samples. And so this is really what the power of digital sampling can do for you.
Sure, and thanks, Maria. And you're right. If you're talking about me, I love free samples. In fact, I love free samples, and I also love companies like Amazon who deliver products to me all the time. And it just so happens that Amazon has gotten into the sampling space, and it really validates even further our category, even with explosive growth. with Amazon now, brands have been testing product sampling for years, and they're seeing the growing trend. And Amazon just really shows that it's an ever-growing relationship, why you need to build these direct-to-consumer relationships more than ever. But, Amazon, they have samples and they give it to you and what they know. But there's differences on how Amazon works versus that of a sampler as well. So while the ecosystem is in fact large and it's great, we have a bunch of companies out there that really just validate the category, and everybody does things a little bit different. Here at Sampler, we have a full end-to-end solution as well. But the companies here, you can always do some research on them and figure out how they differentiate overall.
Some of the things that you'll definitely want to be looking for when you're finding your digital sampling partner is the value of their consumer base, right? So a lot of these sampling communities are being built in a different various ways, right? So when it comes to Sampler, for example, we tap into a deep network of publisher relationships, whereas some other partners might go into e-commerce relationships, or maybe they're just buying media that drives consumers who love free samples. The second most important thing that you'll want to do is make sure that you actually get to own the data that you collect. In the case of a lot of channels, including Amazon, you're operating in a walled garden. A walled garden means that the provider is only allowing you to borrow that data for the day in which you're distributing a sample, and ultimately not allowing you to continue the conversation outside of their network after that. And so you really want to make sure that you can own the data. Another really interesting thing is the omni-channel intelligence. You are buying media across so many channels. It might be on a website that you have great relationships, direct relationships with. It might be influencers. It might be ad exchanges. Wherever you're distributing samples, wherever you're distributing media, your sampling partner should be able to integrate. The other big thing to think about is the fact that you allow consumers to actually opt in. So one of the big problems with a lot of the subscription boxes, for example, is that what ends up happening is that consumers receive samples without actually knowing that they're receiving your product. And so maybe I already have a favorite mascara brand, and now I'm receiving a mascara, and I'm not going to leverage my sample. Another big mistake that sometimes brands do is they don't ask the digital sampling provider what the share of voice will be within the sampling package. And we'll go through some experiences that we've delivered before, but if you're 1 out of 20 different products in a subscription box, your share of voice is very little. And that's very likely that the consumer will not have a personal relationship with your brand. And last but not least, if you really want to leverage all the data that you collect, make sure that your partner has a very smart ad tech and CRM integration plan, as well as an integration into all of your ratings and reviews platform. Whether it's Bazaar Voice or whether it's Turn2, you want to make sure that all the data you collect can be syndicated across your network and across all of your different data sources. So let's go into Sampler.
Great. Thanks, Marie. And so here's how it actually works here at Sampler. You have 2 different opportunities here. We have our co-op solution and we have our fully branded solution. Our co-op example really shows how we can reach over 50 million consumers of people that wanting samples. And then our fully branded example is your audience. So in this situation here, let's show you an example of how the co-op example looks. And so while there's the co-op part, which is partnering with publishers, and the fully branded, which is a fully branded to be a complement to your social media and any kind of programmatic media you have. So the co-op example that we have here is working with publishers that are looking to provide more value for their customers. Their users want something, a tangible product from them. They want to learn, and the publishers in turn want to learn more information about their users. So we partner with some of the leading ones out there in the marketplace, and we create a customized experience where the publisher will email their database and let them know about some samples that are available. But these users need to answer a few different questions to see if they qualify for one of your very valuable samples. Once they go through a host of different questions that are noted throughout the flow of the process, they'll be matched up through our AI technology with a few different samples that match up ideally with their profile. Once they match up with those, they'll be able to self-select a few different of these samples. They'll input their email and home addresses. They'll also agree to the terms and conditions, and they'll also opt in to getting more information from the brands, just as Marie had mentioned earlier. And then post this receival of all this information, once they get everything combined and put into a box, then you'll see in the next example how they receive the products directly from their favorite publisher of choice. Then they get to experience, that you get to put on the skin cream or taste the different chips or the different products that we have available in these co-op experiences. So that's our real publisher solution. Let's talk a little bit more about our fully branded solution, which a lot of the brands and agencies that are on the phone do a lot more of as well. So whether you're using any of the largest social platforms for real targeted execution or for any influencer marketing whatsoever, a brand can use any of these targeted solutions for an experience that has a call to action for product sampling. Once they click off of your ad or your influencer marketing, we'll do the rest. The user will then create a sampler account in a very easy manner, and we'll ask them more of those specific questions to make sure we get the right qualified sample to them. Once we match them up with a sample, we collect their email home information. You'll be able to agree to the terms and conditions, want more information, you, the brand, and then a few days later, a few weeks later, they'll actually receive a beautiful box in the mail with your product for them to experience. In that box, you can include information about your product. You can include information about coupons too, how to use it, where to buy it. So really complementary to any of the stores that you might be doing from a shopper marketing perspective as well. So these are the two high-level solutions that Sampler has. And the part about this is most interesting, that in real time, you're able to see a dashboard that will give you the demos of who you're reaching. What are their age? Where are they located? What are their habits? What is insightful to them? What are their interests? When you're looking for ratings and reviews, what are they saying about your product? Are they giving you high marks? Are they giving you things that need improvement? And then also you'll be able to see those that have actually bought the product after sampling it as well. While this is happening, while you'll have the data at your fingertips, you're also going to have a fully 24/7 white glove support team with our leading client success team to make sure everything is seamless for you and all the promises of digital sampling are provided to you and your goals are met and exceeded. And so everything will be provided. So why don't we get into some of the case studies on how we've worked with different brands. Marie?
Yes, perfect. Thanks, Jonathan. So let's go into some of the case studies and some of the goals that you can expect to drive from sampling plus media. So if you're thinking of combining sampling and media, one of the things you will be able to do is definitely drive up your CRM acquisition. We know it's part of your big goals this year. So this will be a really good way for you to drive email and newsletter registration. Another thing you could do is definitely drive profile collection. I'll share a really good example about a cosmetic brand that is really looking to understand the consumer's skin type and leveraging samples as an incentive to get that data. The other thing that you'll be able to do is actually to ensure that you can actually collect ratings and reviews. Ratings and reviews are very much the lifeblood of your e-commerce, and this is a really, really good way to do so. If you're new to market and you're trying to get consumer feedback, it'll also be a really good way to get some consumer research early about your product and make sure that it's going to perform well when you launch it in market. And some of the last things is definitely helping you drive better media performance across various different channels and ultimately helping you drive e-commerce sales, which is, as we all know, the biggest objective. So let's go directly into a case study about sampling on your website. So Sampler actually recently worked with La Roche-Posay in several different countries, but this particular campaign was actually done in France. So we worked with La Roche-Posay in France and basically just installed their technology, which basically is just a few lines of JavaScript that lives directly within their site. And on their landing page, consumers were invited to actually connect with Sampler answer a couple diagnostic questions specifically around their skin type and their usage of creams. And then ultimately, they were able to potentially match, so receive a chance to match with a free sample. Well, for this brand, driving a skin diagnostic is a very important goal. But organically in the past, they were only able to deliver a certain number of conversions to the diagnostic. And while consumers would start actually doing the diagnostic, they probably wouldn't always complete it. So in this case, with a free sample incentive, they were able to drive 7 times more conversions to the diagnostic with the sampling CTA than they were before. And the best part of that all, is that they were able to do that with 0 media spend. That's right, they just leveraged the organic website traffic, put a landing page creative that drove consumers to a diagnostic and drove 7 times more diagnostics. If you have questions, by the way, or along those case studies or on anything we said, we are going to do a period of questions later. So you can feel free to submit your questions and we will answer those. Another great case study is actually on Facebook and Instagram. So we work with Nestle Purina, and one of the things that their creative agency had done is create these really adorable 30-second videos, and some were actually shorter, that really showed the animal having a great time tasting the product, and they were incredibly cute for all of you cat lovers. But the real goal here was to actually drive consumers to the website. And what they were seeing is that without a sample incentive, it was really difficult to drive CRM conversion from those videos. So what we were able to do is by adding a sampling call to action within the video. So it wasn't immediately at the beginning of the video, it was after a consumer was actually engaged with the video. We were able to add a sample call to action that you'll see right here on the video, try to get a free sample. And there, we were able to drive 7 times lower cost per click than the benchmark they had set. So certainly exceeding expectations. But most importantly, what was really cool to see is that the sampling call to action video drove a 5.5 times higher ad recall than the video that didn't have a free sample, really showing that sampling drives media efficiency. And ultimately, it was a super successful campaign. They drove over 3.2 million unique consumers to see the video, and a bunch of them were able to actually experience the product at home, which drove a lot more media penetration. Another campaign is on Snapchat. So we know that Snapchat is a new medium for a lot of people. And we work directly with the Snapchat team to actually make sure that your sampling is really, really effective. But ultimately here for Nescafe, this was a really good way by adding a sampling call to action to a Snap story. It was a really good way for them to show that they were able to drive action from their ads. So by adding a sampling call to action, consumers, they were targeting young millennials, they were able to swipe up, and ultimately they were able to get a 42% higher click rate than they typically see on regular Snap ads. The other thing that they saw was that it actually drove 7 times higher action intent than just a typical story without a sample. And that's according to a Nielsen independent study that was done right after. So I'll flip it back to Jonathan for some other great best practices, and then we'll come back for questions. So make sure you prepare your questions.
Great. Thanks again, Marie. So some of the best practices that we'd also recommend, and to the point about the limited amount of media that you needed to spend, there are brands out there that just embed our technology onto their homepage. So while you're also spending money, not just digitally, but on radio, out of home, TV, you have people coming to your sites. You can drive a call to action directly off the homepage, like some of the brands that you see here, that actually can get a sample directly from there and go through that entire experience the way that La Roche-Posay did without any spend of digital media there. So why don't you, the brand, be able to monetize that earned, owned, and organic traffic that you've worked so hard to getting over the years, whether it's through the website itself or through the social channels you have for Facebook posts. you can use any one of these mediums to drive that call to action as well. And the sampler team is here to help you work on that and establish that product. So the various different mediums that we work with, again, that can complement your sampling is through Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, and Snapchat. Adding the call to action really results in higher conversions. Some of the best practice we say is that to please implement frequency caps so you don't do such a high frequency against users. Also, work with your media agencies or your ad tech specialists to ensure that there's an exclusion pixel when in fact somebody does claim a sample. As Marie had mentioned earlier, we only serve one sample per user per household, and that minimizes any kind of freebie hunters and making sure that your valuable samples go a really long way to the masses as well. So the other thing is to think about that ad format messaging. We've all been doing this for years, but how do you make sure that call to action really speaks to the sample? A brand image works, but a brand image plus the actual call to action, try a free sample here, are really highly targeted. If you have influencers that are holding the product in the hand, or somebody that has the product that is a great imagery, have that call to action, whatever medium you're using, and have it clear and concise so the user can take action specifically for that as well. And the other thing is the number crunching also. So from a high level perspective, for all the unique clicks that come to the site that you're driving traffic for, you should see roughly around 15 to 25%, around 21% of those that clicked on the ad converting to an actual sampler. So what that means is if certain brands are running campaigns for, this is some argumentary numbers, so 100 million impressions that are being bought for a call to action sampling, if you're seeing an optimized to a 1% click-through rate, you could see roughly 1 million unique clicks to the landing page or microsite that we can help build for you. Our numbers on the back end show about 25% of the users go through the registration process. And then once they go through that, we dual authenticate by sending out a mobile code to confirm that that one user is actually the one household, to make sure that we are finding the real user through dual authentication. We see a pretty high match rate, about 83% of those 250,000 registrars to become activated through a sampling program. From there, out of the 83%, you'll see around 200,000, 207,000 new users who are authenticated to now claim the sample based on your criteria. So when you start thinking about how you're planning and you're executing your media, let us help work backwards, how many samples you're looking to deliver, what are your results are going to be, and then use math like this to really make sure that your campaigns are that effective to get tangible sample product in the hands of the right consumers. So with that, let's open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. So we've received a couple questions. Thank you for submitting it. You should be able to see the question tab on the right side of your screen. So we'll start with a question from James Richardson. James has asked if we have a way to actually measure the return on investment, so actually measure consumers converting to a purchase. And his experience has been that in the past it's been tough to get people to remember whether or not they actually have purchased a product. So he asked about taking photos. So we definitely do have the ability for consumers to share some of their experiences with the product, whether it's the sample or the full size. So definitely the upload of photos is definitely a great experience, a great idea. The other thing we do is we actually do integrate really well with your e-commerce. So we'll drive consumers to use a coupon code directly on your own e-commerce or on a partner e-commerce, depending on where you want to drive. And then when it comes to offline, we have a various different options for coupons. So it's certainly retailer coupons are a really good way. And the other one that we will be releasing very soon is going to be cashback. So the ability for consumers to upload a receipt of the product that they've actually purchased to confirm the actual purchase. So that's really exciting. But ultimately, for all consumers who claim a sample on Sampler, they are being asked with a photo of the picture of the product, whether or not they have converted to purchase. And so that allows you to get a very early indication of both whether or not they have converted, but also their intent to convert.
Sure. And one more thing to add there, Marie, is that we all know that measuring, CPG performance has been a very big challenge for a lot of brands. While we have self-reported claimant data, those that have actually said that they bought the product, it's important for you to use your third-party measurement. So while we're collecting CRM data for you, use your back-end technology companies, your IRIs, your Nielsen's, your ComScores, the other companies to verify if that user is actually one that bought it from our self-reported data, and then use that as a guide to see how those numbers are actually transcending for your ROI as well. So those are some of the best practices that we operate with as well.
That's right. Perfect. So I hope that answers your question, James. So going to a next question, this time from Ruth. Ruth is asking us if there is an incentive, i.e. a discount for the sampler person to promote the brand as a brand ambassador. So I'm assuming that she means that the consumer who is receiving the sample. So just to be clear, Sampler does deliver samples to consumers for completely free. So that is in fact the incentive. So we don't charge consumers to try your product. It's a completely free offer. And we see very high conversion to ratings and review. So we see about 30% of consumers that try your product will come back and give feedback. And they typically do engage on social media as well, which is something that we'll end up measuring for you as well. So the incentive is definitely the free product sample. As far as how they convert to purchase, there is the ability to add a free product, or sorry, not a free product coupon, but a discount coupon as well. All right, one more question coming in from Julie Marsh. Hi, Julie. I remember you from good old days at J. Walter Thompson. So she thanks us for the webinar and says if there are some costs approximately that we could share. So you can expect digital sampling in general to be a bit more of an expensive medium. So where you might spend as little as 50 cents distributing samples offline, you can expect to spend 2 to 4 times more via digital sampling. That includes the cost of fulfillment, right? So the largest cost related to digital product sampling is definitely the focus on shipping the product directly to consumers' homes. And so the best way to actually offset the cost of shipping is to participate in a program like our co-op program, where you will be participating with other brands. And so, yes, you won't get the 100% share of voice, but you will certainly be able to reduce your costs. So short answer is it will depend between approximately $1.25 to $2 is probably the average. And then obviously if you have a very heavy product, it could go a little bit higher. I hope that answers that question.
Sure, and the one thing to add to that, Marie, also, if I may, is that a lot of the brands that we work with also identify that they have budgets for their CRM, building their actual customized list of users that could be valuable for them. They also have budgets for ratings and reviews. They have product sampling budgets also. And then combining these together, you can actually find really the value of what we can all encompass with one product sampling campaign through Sampler. So all of this together, while their costs might be a little bit different, you can really truly find the value in what we provide throughout all those different aspects of what we cover too.
Good. Another question from Daryl is asking, how big is your current consumer profile database and how many are in Canada? So really exciting to say that we actually can reach as much as 50 million consumers across North America and a bit of Europe. And the majority of it is actually definitely more in the US. So 20% of the databases is in Canada. The reality is, though, we're constantly recruiting. So if, let's say, a brand came to us and said, I want to reach a consumer who has dogs allergic to cats, who live in Markham, and like chocolate once in a while. No, that would be very bad for the pet. But but you get the idea. We will go and recruit those consumers. So our audience will grow alongside your needs. It's ultimately our job to find those audiences for you if you pick our exchange product, so you don't have to worry at all about that. Anything to add there, Jonathan?
Nope, that's pretty much it. Again, we can help with our audience, and then obviously help complement finding more with your audience as well through our fully branded solution.
Perfect. We also have another question from Will. So the question is, how do you measure the feedback from consumers, i.e. their on Facebook, the website, etc.? So Will, this is an incredible question, very important. So every time a consumer connects to Sampler, they connect with their phone number and their email. So we can reach all of the consumers who connect via text or email. And ultimately, we follow up with them after they've tried your product. So depending on the category, for example, if you're in the baby category, certainly we would want to follow up with the new mom after baby's birth. So that could be a customized cadence. But for things like food, we'll actually follow up with consumers as shortly after as 14 days after they've received the product. And ultimately what we'll do is we'll ask them how they felt. They'll follow up they'll fill a ratings and review questionnaire. And what we'll do is we'll actually syndicate all of that information back to the ratings and review network that you're leveraging. So a lot of brands leverage a syndication platform, Voice or Yacht Pro, and we'll integrate with those really, really well to make sure that your ratings and reviews show on all of your e-commerce sites. So ultimately, we collect on our own platform. We do have some social measurement, but ultimately, consumers come back to our platform to give us feedback.
Yeah, and one more thing to add there also, Marie, and sorry if you hear construction in the background, but the important thing for brands to note is that if you are collecting the CRM data, and when a user, gets a sample of a specific product, if they're an expecting mom, when they received it. And now as a big company, you can actually use that data across the different brands to provide them different products throughout their lifestyle. So if in the beginning, maybe it's diapers, and then maybe it's baby lotion, but as they get a little older, maybe it's baby food, and then eventually maybe some toddler products. And so you have now, from the inception of creating a sampling campaign targeted to your audience, the life cycle of that individual, and that you can provide that cross-brand knowledge for all the brands underneath the larger parent company as well.
That's right. Another question came in about what is the recruitment process, and how do we control the quality of panelists, and how do we confirm the quality? And so that's actually a really, really great question. It makes me kind of want to go back to the panelist walkthrough. So one of the ways that Sampler recruits the people that participate in our sampling program is through partnerships with large online publishers. So we'll work with publishers like Greatest, for example, which is an amazing health and wellness website, or we'll work with an online community for moms, for example, like in Canada, Canadian Mother Resource, and their audience will be asked to fill a sampling profile. Now, the most important thing about the sampling profile is that the consumer has no idea that your product is part of this sampling program, right? So you can ask questions like, which grocery stores do you shop at more than once a month, or what are your food allergies, and things that will help you really narrow down like the product that the consumer should match with. So ultimately, after I've answered a couple questions, I get a list of samples that I match with, but I only get to choose a portion of those samples. So although I'm gluten-free and I also have light wrinkles, when I get the chance to match between Lancome's new Genifique product or maybe potentially a gluten-free pasta, I will have to, as the consumer, to make a choice between both. And that opt-in is so, so, so important. So as a brand, you have no risk. At the end of the day, your sample will only be shown if a consumer of high value and within your target market connects. And they will only receive it if they've opted in to receiving it, which really, really increases the participation rate in other things like the ratings and reviews and ultimately purchase. Great question, Ace. We also have another questions from Jennifer, and the question is, do brands get to own the data and emails of those who claim to sample? And that's definitely something that you do get access to. So throughout the entire process, you will be able in real time to get access to our analytics dashboard, which will allow you to see in real time who exactly is claiming your sample, what are they saying, what is their feedback, and ultimately how your campaign is performing. And then you'll be able to go to that dashboard in order to download all of the information collected. We do follow GDPR compliancy and also CASL here in Canada. And so ultimately you can make sure that only people that fit, that have opted in get access are downloadable, but you will get access to everybody who opts into your remarketing. Absolutely. And that's really what direct to consumer product sampling is, or digital sampling. It's this ability for you to actually own that data.
Sure. And if I may add in one more thing there, Marie, is that for the brands and the agencies that are on the phone that do any kind of data capturing through their ad tech platform of choice, there are ways to place pixels on confirmation pages of those that actually purchase the product or actually claim the sample, such as what we have here. So whether you're using your information in the CRM to do any offline marketing, or if you're actually using the sample to apply with a DMP pixel, so you can actually add to your robust first-party data, segment those users out, target them the way that you want to target them. So if you want to target high valuable customers who gave high ratings and reviews, maybe you want to target them a certain way on the on Open Exchange or through PMPs specifically, and then also use that data, that strong claimant data, on influencing on how you're targeting within your social media platform. So we do have pixels on those different confirmation pages that can really increase the targeting through your social media choice of platform as well. So happy to answer more of those questions offline as well, and we can talk through how that can complement your media programmatic execution as well.
That's great, and we're getting some really good questions, so keep them going. The next question is from Ruth, and she says, she would be, as a consumer, quite reluctant to give all of her information, address, and all that stuff up just for a free sample. So what are some of the strategies that we do in order to make sure that this is not a bother or, as she says, potentially creepy? And so to be honest, that's definitely something that we have to make sure that we are super transparent. I mean, at the end of the day, we are a B2B platform. We're built for you to create really great, robust sampling programs that allow you to collect data. But we have to think about the consumer in the end, and we have to think about the consumer's experience a lot. And so one of the things that we do is we allow every single consumer to own all controls of their profile. So when you connect to your sampler profile, you can see in a very, very clear way all of the information that you've provided to brands. So you can see things like, I've told my date of birth, or I've told sampler that I have a pet. And ultimately, our goal here is to make consumers feel like that information is useful to their experience on Sampler. And it really is. I mean, we wouldn't be asking consumers about their pets unless there was a potential match with a pet product. And so we really have to be wary about asking information that doesn't actually result into a sampling activity. But we really, really focus on transparency, and our data management is like top notch. We work with some of the largest brands in the world, and we want to make sure that they feel just as comfortable as the consumers feel in us holding that data. So that's a really good question, and we'd love you to try the experience and give us your feedback from a consumer standpoint. But I think you'd love our transparency. Um, Good. Another question here from Max here back in Europe. He's asking us if we've ever sampled beverages and specifically in Europe. So we actually have worked in Europe quite a bit. We operate currently in 18 different countries. So that's super exciting. Many of them are in Europe. We do a lot of work in the United Kingdom. We do a lot of work in France, Germany. So no problem operating in those countries. When it comes to beverages in general, the reality is that they're very heavy. So when it comes to shipping, it can be a little bit more of a barrier because like the weight is a big driver of your cost. The other thing about beverages is that most beverage companies like to serve their beverage cold, right? It's not really exciting to receive a lukewarm Coca-Cola by the mail. So one of the things that we do is we do recommend to do a free product coupon. So we have shipped a free product coupon redeemable in a specific retailer. And there's ways to make that product coupon really fun. For example, you can make it personalized. So you could say, "Hey, Kelly's here's your free Coca-Cola, for example, and you can go redeem it at X store that is not so far from your place." So what we suggest for beverage is to try and make the experience a little bit more personalized, and ultimately probably ship a coupon instead of the physical product. But having said that, we've worked with companies that have had very great alternative beverage options, like things that look like SodaStream, really heavy, and have leveraged a sampler for shipping. So it really depends on how you want to deliver the experience.
Sure. And one thing to add to that, Marie, also, and that's a great question, is the fact that Sampler really helps with initiatives that are related to shopper marketing for a lot of brands, where you want to drive trial inside certain stores, or if you have to move products off of shelves too, also. So if it is important for you to sell your beverage at a Target, some of the redeemable coupons, to Marie's point, can be get your 16-ounce soda here at Target as well. So driving them into that specific store for redemption and getting it off shelves. So we work with plenty of different brands that have those initiatives, and we're happy to share a lot of those details when users follow up here with us.
We also got another question from Jamie, and the question is, how can someone pilot with Sampler, and how quickly can we launch a program? Well, that's a great question. So certainly Sampler is actually fully self-serve. So if you did want to give it a whirl, you could actually go to our landing page at the top right corner and press start a sampling program, where you could actually start uploading some offers ready for delivery. Having said that, if you want some help getting started, please feel free in the questions section to just leave a note with your email address, and we'll make sure to have someone from our client success team reach out right away so that we can get on a call and get started with you. The reality is we will be able to launch as quick as you ship us product. So we've launched as quick as in 24 hours. So this is digital sampling. Another one of the big benefits is that you can be incredibly reactive. If one of your competitors shows up in market and drops 1 million samples on a big event and you need to compete, this is a really good way to do that. So we want to help you be nimble with your strategies, and we can get started very, very quickly. So please don't hesitate to reach out. All right. It was truly an honor to be here, and I'm getting a lot of your thank yous back right now, so thanks for that. We're excited to continue the conversation. This will be only one of many other webinars, so please stay tuned to our channels. And probably next time we might go more in depth on a more specific use case. But we hope that this was a good 101 for all of you who are venturing into digital sampling for the first time. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Marie. And thank you, everybody on the phone.
Perfect. Awesome. It was really great to see some great brands and some great retailers and agencies on the call today. We'll chat soon.